what are the critical consideration? Because many times when we are interacting or you are interacting with LPs also, there are a lot of questions in their mind, basically, how to evaluate, how to invest, when to invest actually. So what are the critical considerations that LP look for when embarking on the investment in AIFs actually? And the another question which you like to ask from me, that can you provide insights into the evaluation process followed by the government fund of fund actually? Because there are some set norms also allocating fund through the fund of fund, like SIDBI and SRI fund actually. So these two things are there, but you are free to add as per your experience so that the industry should get the benefit of it. Over to you, sir.
2001, I was part of Bharti Airtel. And that time, Warburg Pincus came and invested around $300 million in the company. And within 4 years, they went back with $1.8 billion. While the contribution for Airtel and every team member was celebrated inside and across the nation, somewhere I was saddened. I was saddened that why not a single penny was made by an Indian investor in an opportunity as large as telecom, in an entrepreneur as good as Sunil Mittal. And this became a basis for me to conceptualize Your Nest. And the reason Ashish has invited me here is we have a base of around 300 investors across 3 funds now. In the last 10 years, Fund 1 was 80 crores with 140 individual investors. Fund 2 was 215 crores with around 80 investors. And now the 750 crore fund has more than close to 150 individual investors or so, including institutions that Dineshji talked about. Keep in mind that what is the evaluation criteria? Ashishji, the evaluation criteria between an individual family office or even an institution does not differ. The only thing that we've been able to establish consistently is that at Your Nest, we've been top tier fund. And family offices, individuals, please keep in mind, there is a benchmarking report that comes in from CRISIL, Preqin, as well as NSE. And that benchmarking report gives us the data as to how the funds are performing. Happy to inform that all 3 funds are continuously top tier performing funds. Fund 2, as per CRISIL, amongst the 29 funds of that vintage of 2017, ranks 4th. The Fund 3, today of 2021 vintage, ranks 3rd amongst the 33 funds. And across 388 funds that are reporting data to SEBI, we must be amongst the top 5% of the funds on the overall performance. Now, the purpose of any evaluation is to determine which fund can be a top tier fund. The first criteria that goes in the minds of them is the institutional approach to investing. You cannot have a fluke in your portfolio. The judgment that one has to make is, can you deliver that consistently? And what is your investment process? How do you evaluate which all partners are involved, how the analysts prepare the report, how the investment case is looked at, how the risk assessment is done, and where all the team has walked away from a transaction by saying that we don't understand this particular space. And if they've invested in a particular space, what authority they have to be in control of the future of your money are the aspects that they try and understand as to how institutionalize your approaches. The second aspect is, are you sticking to your investment thesis? We've come across family offices who have made even 10x and 11x returns on some of their fund investments of 2011-12. And when I go back to them and ask them whether they would like to invest or continue to invest in that fund that has given them 10, 11x return, they say no. The reason they say no is because they did not stick to the investment thesis that was defined. The way Dineshji said that he's looking at deep tech and deep science and these kind of businesses, if we are sticking to that thesis, institutional investors and family offices are happier. It cannot be that you are saying this is a pharma mutual fund, and the definition of pharma tomorrow you extend it to healthcare as well. Okay, yes, it's a fine line, but it is better that you keep your investors informed of what you want to be doing and how you want to be doing it, and why do you think that particular sector, that stage, that country, that geography is going to be giving disproportionate returns. So that convincing ability needs to be there. Now, for people who've been there in existence for more than 5-6 years, exit has become the norm. If you have not returned 1x of the capital back to the investors, some of these institutional investors don't talk to us at all. International investors, they wait on the sidelines till the time you've returned a significant amount of capital back to the investors. They say exiting is the most toughest of jobs, and we know that's the process that all of us are learning in this Indian venture capital ecosystem. The ones who've been able to demonstrate giving cash back to the investors are being loved by the LPs. We had National Infrastructure Investment Fund. They wanted to develop a thesis of investing in venture capital. We worked with them all along their conceptualization of the idea 4 years ago. And now they are anchors in our Fund 3 with 20% capital coming in from NIF. And first time they've invested in venture capital. Reason they've invested is they saw DPI. DPI is distributed to paid in capital. So the moment you've started distributing capital back to the investors, you can get into reckoning out there. How do you do it, and where do you do it? When do you do it? For us VCs, we have to be very, very clear that what role we are here to play. Let me give an example. We are a pre-Series A investors. We invest normally $1 million in a company. If my $1 million invested in a company in a first round has become, let's say, $7 to $10 million in a period of 7-8 years, and I sell that particular $1 million stake at $7 million, let's say 7x. There are options with me to keep sitting on that asset, launch an opportunity fund, launch another fund, and keep nurturing that asset and say this company is going to be, the 7 million is actually going to become $50 million in the next 5 years. Whereas I can go back to my investors and tell them, no, my role is not to seed and warm investment which is already grown. My role is to sell that asset for $7 million, give the money back to my investors. Investors will have a trust in me. Maybe they'll pull back $15 million in my funds, use that $15 million to nurture 15 more startups. Our specialization is to nurture young startups. So that's the role that they want to see. So with these words, I think I've given some examples to you, Ashish, for your listeners to think through how to go about evaluating and how the family offices are evaluating institutions like us.